South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Friday edition of Game Night, and we have Ben Simmons news. Oh my goodness. I feel like we've been talking so much Ben Simmons. Now we actually have news to talk about. We will get to that in just a moment right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. I am Josh Hennig hanging out with you in the Matt Black Kia Studios. Man, we got Ben Simmons-Sixers who just popped off about a half hour ago. You can read all the details right now at 973ESPN.com. Also, Flyers have lost 10 straight. We will talk with Kevin Durso about that coming up at 6:20 tonight as they are on a road trip in Vegas. So we'll get to the Ben Simmons stuff in just a moment. Also, later in the show, I will give you my picks for the weekend. UFC 269 tomorrow, NFL on Sunday, all the picks a little bit later in the hour. Thanks to FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. And as always, you can join the conversation. Get in right now. 609-403-0973 is the text board. DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on YouTube at 973 ESPN. All right, but with no further delay, we got to get into this Ben Simmons thing, because what Adrian Wojnarowski and Zach Lowe reported today falls directly in line with what I have been telling you guys for weeks here on 97.3 ESPN. I have held firm on this position, and I feel vindicated today because Woj dropped this bomb a little bit earlier today. According to him and Zach Lowe of ESPN, Philadelphia's trade conversations on Ben Simmons are gathering momentum in recent days. More teams are engaged. More 2- and 3-way deal structure talks ongoing as Sixers try to land a top 25 player for Simmons. Much of the renewed impetus surrounds Wednesday, December 15th, when 84% of the league's 446 players become eligible to be traded. Right now, only 65% are eligible to be moved. So this is what we've been talking to you guys about. The deadline was approaching. Now, I didn't expect there to be smoke on Friday, December 10th. I expected there to be a little more smoke on maybe like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. But the fact that this news came out today tells you, as I told you guys earlier this week, Daryl Morey doesn't sit on his hands. This is not the Brian Colangelo, Brett Brown Sixers. This is a different era. This is a different world. This organization is going to find a way to make trades, and they have to. You absolutely have to, because you barely beat the Charlotte Hornets for 2 games, and then last night you came home and you fought hard. You really did. You really tried hard, but you got out-rebounded by almost 20 last night to a better team. You lost to a better team when you were both on a back-to-back. The Sixers have leaned heavily on Joel Embiid now for 2.5 months. The majority of their wins are with him on the floor, which is part of the reason why he is an MVP candidate. But Daryl Morey and the Sixers are accepting what me and you listening and everyone who watches the Sixers game understands. Number one, the Sixers are not good enough as currently constructed. Number two, Ben Simmons is the trade piece to make this roster better. And that's why the report came out today from Woj and Lowe about the Sixers, because now's the time to make a move. Now is the time to take advantage of desperate teams. Look around the NBA right now. We are in a regular season, not a COVID season, not a modified year. I understand some guys are out with COVID right now, but we're not in a COVID shortened season or in a bubble right now. This is a regular 82 game schedule. The 76ers are 16 games, as well as almost the entire league. 26 games, as well as most of the league into that 82 game schedule. We are quarter pole position at this point and beyond. So you know who you are for the most part. Right now, the Philadelphia 76ers are 14-12. And you know who's behind them in the standings? The Hawks, the Hornets, the Celtics, the Knicks, the Raptors, the Pacers. There was all kinds of talk that teams like the Knicks and the Celtics and the Hornets and the Hawks were going to be contenders this year. And right now, they're all in the same boat with Philadelphia in the Western Conference. Here are the teams that are 500 or worse in the Western Conference. The Lakers, the Mavericks, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, the Sacramento Kings, Portland Trailblazers, and San Antonio Spurs. That's seed 6 through 12 in the Western Conference. The seat is getting hot for a bunch of teams. And now, when we get to December 15th, is when you can move these contracts. Because Ben Simmons, don't forget, has a very unique contract. This is not Anthony Davis. This is not Paul George. This is not any of these guys who had just a little bit of time left on their contract. I detail this more at 973ESPN.com, the 973 ESPN mobile app, which is free, thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And I explained to you guys in the article, Ben Simmons' contract has a lot of money still left on it. It's not just the fact that there's 3 more years after this current season. It's the amount of money he is getting paid. 33 this year, 35 next, almost 38 the year after, and 40 the year after that. You're talking about over $116 million in guaranteed money for the next 3 seasons into his 28-year-old season. It's max money, but it's not super max money. Tobias Harris has more money coming to him than Ben Simmons right now, but Ben Simmons has all these years of guaranteed money still to go. And when you look at the 76ers on the court, they need help. They need improvement. You cannot win long-term as currently constructed because you're asking Joel Embiid to do too much work. And when you get out rebounded like you did last night, you are missing Ben Simmons. When you have trouble getting your offense going because Tyrese Maxey had basically smacked his head on the court and had to be helped off the court, even though he came back, still look 100%, you need a better playmaker. Now, there's a lot of names out there. And that's the other side of what Woj said today in his report. The other part of what Woj said in his report is that the Portland Trailblazers are not trading Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard has gone on the record now on Scott Van Pelt SportsCenter, to The Athletic, to Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports, at multiple press conferences. He has said he does not want to be traded. He is not interested in being traded, and Portland is not interested in trading him. But the reason why Portland is a team to keep an eye on is because they got to change up that roster. And they may have to blow things up a little bit to get Lillard what he needs. Because right now, the only guy on that roster who's really playing well is Norman Powell. Nurkic doesn't look the same. Everyone on that team, aside from CJ McCollum, who has a collapsed lung right now, everyone who's not named Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum is tradable at this point. And I wouldn't be surprised if Portland gets involved in like a 4-3 team trade that involves Ben Simmons. We told you guys earlier this week here on 97.3 ESPN. The Timberwolves, they are a team to keep an eye on. They have new ownership coming in. Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez. Their commitment is to change this franchise. Well, if they're serious about changing the franchise around, you got to go big or go home, boys. And I think that when you look at the Timberwolves, if they are serious about doing whatever it takes to give Karl Anthony Towns what he wants, part one of that process was giving him D'Angelo Russell, his BFF. And the second part might be getting Ben Simmons, because according to a lot of reports, Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and Ben Simmons are all friends. They all play video games. They all know similar people. They're all very friendly with each other. And we know in the league today, guys like to play with their friends. But in order for you to get Ben Simmons, you can't give the Sixers Malik Beasley and hope for the best. The Sixers, as Adrian Wojnarowski reported today, the Sixers are trying to get a top 25 player in the league. Now, the guy I'm going to name to you is not a top 25 player right now, but I think he's going to be a top 25 player. If the Timberwolves are serious, they will include Anthony Edwards in a trade. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if they're serious, that's what they do. Otherwise, they're going to have to get another team involved to get Ben Simmons there. Of course, the other teams we've heard a lot of conversation about are the Sacramento Kings, the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Athletic is reporting that the Indiana Pacers are talking about blowing up their roster. We know the Spurs are out there. So there's a lot of players who are swirling around. The Karis LeVerts, the DeMontis Sabonis, the DeJounte Murray from the San Antonio Spurs. And some Sixer fans love the idea of De'Aaron Fox. So things are heating up. Where there is smoke, there is fire, and the Sixers stuff is catching fire. We will keep you updated every step of the way right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, you could join the conversation. Text board is 609-403-0973. You can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on YouTube at 973 ESPN. And of course, why the Flyers lost 10 straight? I thought they fired their coach. They're supposed to fix everything, right? Well, Kevin Durso is going to join us coming up at 6:20 tonight to get more into the Flyers. Of course, you guys can join the conversation as well on the Sixers and Ben Simmons and more. Of course, we will give you my picks for the weekend presented by my friends at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. The retail sportsbook features 5 betting windows, a large video wall, a sports ticker, 20 self-service betting kiosks, and various lounge seats. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino off the boardwalk in Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, crazy busy day in the sports world. A lot of things going on. Flyers tonight, Sixers tomorrow playing the Warriors. Don't forget about that game because Steph Curry, will he break the record tomorrow night? I personally think he doesn't. I don't think that unless Steph has one of those games where he is just so on fire, he can't be stopped. I don't see him breaking the record against the Sixers tomorrow night. I think it'd be a cool moment if he broke the record and his brother was guarding him. That would probably be a very cool, all-time moment in NBA history and in that family's history. But I just don't see a scenario where Seth is going to hit 10 threes tomorrow night. Remember, the Warriors, like the Jazz, are one of the best rebounding teams in the NBA. And like the Jazz, the Warriors are one of the best three-point shooting teams. And what's the other Sixers bad at right now? The Sixers' perimeter defense stinks, and their rebounding is mediocre. So I think the Warriors, they're going to probably hit the cruise control in the fourth quarter. I think it's going to come a point in the fourth quarter where the Sixers are going to run out of juice, and Seth and Draymond and company, they're going to be able to take their foot off the gas pedal and cruise to victory. So I think Steph, Stephen Curry doesn't get the record tomorrow night. I think he gets it next week. But Warriors versus Sixers. Another opportunity for the Sixers to be absolutely exposed by another better team to even further the point that they need help. Daryl Morey needs to make a trade sooner than later before the season gets away from them. Speaking of a season getting away from you, the Flyers have basically fallen apart and fallen on their face. Why have they lost 10 straight? I thought firing the coach was supposed to fix everything. That's what the experts always tell us. We'll ask expert. Flyers insider Kevin Durso tells us next, right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of CLC. We can listen to Flyers versus Vegas Golden Knights tonight at 10 p.m. Steve Coates, Tim Saunders on the call. And of course, we are live on YouTube at 973 ESPN. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.
Tomorrow is one of college football's greatest traditions when Army meets Navy. Hey folks, this is Jason Horowitz of Westwood One Sports. Join John Sadak, Ross Tucker, and Tina Cervasio from MetLife Stadium for all the pageantry and the action. In the Black Knights win the Commander-in-Chief's trophy again, or will the midshipmen have the upset and their biggest win of the year? If it's the Army-Navy game, it's right here.
On 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 2 p.m.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
We'll get back to the Ben Simmons-Sixers fiasco stuff in just a bit here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. But the Flyers play the Vegas Golden Knights tonight, 10 p.m. You can hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. Although I don't know if the word action is what should be used right now because the Flyers look pretty pitiful right now. For years, the hockey diehard always talks about, well, fire the coach, right? And well, they fired the coach and they still stink. So we'll ask an expert why they stink. Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Kevin, I got to say, I know this is the second time they've lost 10 games in a row in the last few years, but I feel worse for you now than the previous time it happened. How are you doing?
As good as I can be, I guess, for having to watch this team on a regular basis because it is hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, the last time they lost 10 games in a row, there were a couple of those games they were like barely losing, right? A few years ago. Like, it wasn't like they were getting annihilated like they are right now every game. It feels like every game they just have no chance. And like I said before you came on, for years I always got told, well, fire the coach. Well, they fired the coach. And you could argue it might have gotten worse.
Yeah, I mean, look, firing the coach is sometimes the only thing that can be done at this stage of the season. Nobody's making trades, so you can't just trade a player and say, look, we've solved our problem in this area or that area. It just doesn't happen at this time of year. Nobody's thinking that way. Who out there is sitting there looking at their team in early December, mid-December, that's in a playoff race and thinking, we need that extra thing to put us over the top? You're going to actually probably pay even more at that time because of the fact that a team's going to ask for something astronomical and you're going to look at it and go, well, no one's demanding anything else. So why would we make that trade right now? So everybody pulls back. It's the trade deadline is the way it is because it's becomes desperation. Who wants to get that piece that they think puts them over the top? And you're not the only one out there thinking that way. If you're a contending team, what can I do to make my team better? So if you're one of these teams right now, I mean, for right now, and I think I believe I said this to Mike earlier in the week too, if you're going in to play the Flyers right now, you're looking at it like a chance to just get 2 points right now. And I mean, to me, Vegas is absolutely doing that because of the fact that you got teams out there that are almost asking for you to bring whatever your best is and find a way to end this streak. The Vegas Golden Knights tonight are starting their backup goalie, who's only made 5 other starts this season. They're going to be without their top line center, Chandler Stevenson. He's out for personal reasons. He's their leading scorer, and it doesn't seem like it's going to matter because you've got other guys who are going to just pick up where that guy leaves off and find a way to make it work. Everybody else is. I mean, think about the Tampa Bay game that led into Alain Vigneault's firing. That's a 7-1 final. Brian Elliott's in goal, who had made 4 starts all year to that point. They don't have Braden Point. They don't have Nikita Kucherov. And yet they go out there and they score 7 goals like it was nothing. So that's the way that teams are playing against the Flyers right now. And, I'm not going to sit here and tell you firing the coach was the wrong thing to do at this point because something had to be done. You don't go out and get embarrassed like that after having time off when a team that comes in, played the night before, and should be at least a little bit tired, at least a little bit off their game because it's a back-to-back for them. And there was nothing off of Tampa Bay's game. They were just fine the way that they were. So you have to do something at that point. But as I wrote the next day, I didn't even do a takeaways article from the Monday game against Colorado. I just focused on the day's events of Alain Vigneault being fired and what it meant. I think it's only the first step of what really needs to be done here, which is you've got to really just tear this thing down slowly but surely. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's the direction you need to take. And you need to tell people, in my opinion anyway, tell people what the next 3 to 5 years are going to be like. And it's not going to be pretty. But I think if you make that the expectation, because what was the expectation coming in? It was, look at all the changes that were made. Look at how much better we think we are. We should make the playoffs. Making the playoffs is non-negotiable, all that type of stuff. Well, here's where you are right now. And there are only 6 teams behind you in the standings. That's it, 6. And at least 2 of them, probably closer to 4 in reality, are right there knocking on the door to pass you in the standings. You could be, in a matter of a couple of games, you could be a bottom 4 team in the league, bottom 5 team in the league for sure. Like, that's how close this is to being where they are. And it fits with the level of play they have. And I certainly can tell you, I mean, if there's a chance for them to break out of this streak, I don't think it's tonight. I'd be shocked if they won the game tonight. I think tomorrow when you play the league worst Arizona Coyotes, maybe you've got a shot, but I'm not holding my breath right now because everything about this team is wrong. And, until you figure something out in a positive direction, and who knows when that's going to happen, it's hard to break out of a streak like this.
Yeah, and obviously I'm saying this partially tongue in cheek. Probably the bet of the night is Vegas to score a lot of goals. So I would feel like saying The -2.5 at +154 looks really good for people right now because even with the guys you mentioned who are out, Vegas is a stud team. I mean, they got studs up and down the lineup. Oh, and by the way, remember the Flyers? They got rid of a guy named Nolan Patrick. Is he going to play tonight?
He's not. He's dealing with an injury, which I know is going to come as a shock to a lot of people because that was kind of the story of his entire career to this point as well. So he is not playing, but they've got good depth across the board. This is a really good team, and they dealt with some injuries early on in the year. Mark Stone was out, Max Pacioretty was out. They had injuries, and they feel like it was very much the Flyer narrative that they tried to give us, like that was given early in the year. Well, no Ellis, no Hayes, guys missing from the lineup, that kind of thing. They kind of really were riding it out until they could get guys who are playing in their top six and legitimately part of their top six. Pacioretty is, and I made him my player to watch for Vegas tonight in my game preview. He's playing lights out right now. He's outstanding and well over a point per game pace. I mean, he hasn't really played all that much, but he's got points in every game he's played this season. And that says a lot about the type of player that he is for them. And he seems like he just keeps getting better around the talent that they have. So, they kind of are turning a corner now, Vegas is. And they're looking more like the team that has made playoff runs very early on in their young history as a franchise and could be poised to do so again if this continues throughout the season. So they've got the pieces in place. And yes, maybe no Nolan Patrick here. If you're looking at that, I know you were looking at the whatever betting odds you think favorite. I honestly think that's something that favors anybody who's looking at it right now. And I'm not the betting type or anything like that. I certainly am not the person to ask for any betting advice here, but the over seems like a good bet in a lot of these games because even if the Flyers find a way to get a couple goals, and when you're facing goalies, when they faced a goalie who against Colorado who was making his first NHL start, you kind of felt like maybe they'll find a way to solve him a few times, but you kind of had a feeling going the other way. Colorado's going to be able to score. I think the over that night was 6.5, and there were 7 goals scored in the first period. So the over hit in the first period. So I believe tonight, I'm looking at it now, 6.5 is the over. I don't know if we're going to see 7 in the game because of the fact that the Flyers would probably have to contribute to that a little bit, and nobody's really scoring right now. But I think that Vegas can certainly be good for, that 3 to 5 range because that's the type of talent they have, especially, they're a struggling power play. I think believe it or not, they're ranked behind the Flyers, which is certainly a tall task to be a team ranked behind the Flyers in power play percentage. But again, when you're missing all those guys, like I mentioned, when you're missing players like Pacioretty and Stone, who are power play contributors and put up points, that eventually does make your power play percentage dip significantly. And that could just come right back when you get that talent on the ice, especially with the way the Flyers are reeling.
Yeah, their backup goaltender, I'm looking at it right now. I'm going to probably botch this name, but is it Laurent Brossoit?
Yeah, you got it.
Oh my
yes,
goodness, that was a lucky
you got
guess.
it.
But my favorite part is right next to him on the team's website is an ad for Nevada Oral and Facial Surgery. So, if that's not a hockey team commercial ad on a website, I don't know what is. Flyers insider Kevin Durso joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Flyers are playing and will lose to the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. You can hear it at 10 p.m. here on 97.3 ESPN. But seriously, Kevin, what do we do now? Like, what is next for the Flyers? Because, no offense to Mike Yeo. He's a sacrificial lamb. He's just out there to, kill time until they figure out what's next, right? So, what is next? What is the next step in this pitiful situation?
Yeah, pretty much you just nailed it a little bit because the only way Mike Yeo is the answer to the coaching situation, however you want to look at it, is if there's some sort of miraculous turnaround that comes probably within the next 2 weeks. And in fairness, and when Pete was on with Mike earlier tonight, he alluded to this a little bit. You got teams coming up on the schedule. Like I said, Arizona's tomorrow night, Ottawa's next week, Montreal's next week. They're teams that are in the running to pass you in the coming weeks if you don't turn it around and they find a way to keep your streak going. But that could also be the ticket to turning it around too, is you're going to play weaker teams. It's going to happen. You've played a lot of the top teams in the league, and they're making it look like child's play at this point when they go out there as compared to what will happen when you play a team like Arizona. That game against Arizona, both teams are going to be playing in the back end of a back-to-back. that might be an ugly hockey game. I mean, it just is going to probably be a really ugly game, and somebody's going to have to win it. Maybe it goes beyond regulation, which would slightly change the narrative for the Flyers, because it's not, I put this in my takeaways after Wednesday's game. The difference between a true losing streak in the NHL and what is a winless streak. We can sit there and say they've lost 10 games in a row, which is true, but it's viewed as a 10-game winless streak because 2 of those games went beyond regulation and they did get points. But their last 6 have been regulation losses. If that continues for another 3 games, they tie a franchise record in that department. 12 is the record for winless streak. I mean, that's all on the horizon. I mean, you can see it coming into focus now. So, what's next for them at this point? Right now, trying to figure out what you can do to see who sticks with this franchise. I mean, you're going to learn a whole lot. I mean, I thought what was really telling about the Wednesday game, all right, if they weren't going to win that game on Monday night against Colorado. Too much had happened already that day. You had the coach fired. There was a press conference. Mike Yeo is going to answer questions about what he's going to do as the interim coach. Chuck Fletcher's answering questions about what went wrong, why this decision, why now, all that type of stuff. The team's rattled at that point, so they're not going to win against a team with Colorado's talent. But when you get a day off in between after playing 2 games in a row and you go in and play a team like New Jersey, who's not that far ahead of you, you need to play with some pride. And there was no sense of pride at all. There was just completely lifeless, completely boring, completely uninspired play. And if that continues, then you've got nothing here really that should stick. I mean, about the only guy who I can point out who I say I feel sorry for is Carter Hart, because he is doing his best to keep his team in the game. I mean, it was a 2-0 game essentially. It's a 3-0 final against New Jersey, but one of those is an empty netter. He's keeping his team in the game as much as he can. And they're not doing anything in front of him to stop the wave of pressure that's coming, to do anything to generate any sort of high danger chances. I mean, they don't even get close to generating anything of dangerous extent that would make a goaltender feel pressure, which is why a team like Vegas can sit there and go, you know what, let's throw the backup out there tonight, because they can't generate anything. If we just play a good defensive game, we can make this a walk in the park for the backup.
Now, I asked you what was next because I understand that a lot of people, they want to see carnage at this point, right? A lot of people, when things start going, it's like the person who goes to the NASCAR race and all they want to see is a car crash, right? Or the hockey fan who used to go to the game, all they want to see is a fight, right? Well, I feel like the everyone on the outside looking in the Flyers right now is like, well, we got to see something. So we saw the coach fired. Is there someone we should expect to be traded? Is there someone who we should expect to maybe get unloaded before the deadline? Like, for example, I know that Yandel is a really cheap guy that maybe a team might want to grab because he's a veteran. I assume Atkinson's here long-term. They didn't trade him just to dump him immediately. So, who are some names people should focus on that could be moved in the next several weeks?
I mean, in the next several weeks, don't expect anything, to be honest. I mean,
okay.
The deadline's not until March, post-Olympic break and all that type of stuff. No one's thinking about this type of stuff right now. I mean, you're kind of just stuck with what you have, and that's why you kind of see the revolving door of what prospect can come up, or not even prospect, what minor league player can come up to fill a role for a guy who's injured. Like Derek Brassard's out again tonight, so Max Willman is back in the lineup. That doesn't change anything. That's just another placeholder for, a roster spot and a lineup spot just to get you a full roster for a game, kind of. To me, the guy who needs to be traded when the deadline rolls around, or when the time comes, and I said this to Mike earlier in the week, you've got to have an honest conversation with Claude Giroux. And I'm not saying that you should want to have to trade him at this point, because your goal is to have him here to try to have that one shot late in his career to maybe win here, because he spent his whole career here. But you've got to ask that question, because to me, that is the changing of the guard among the players anyway. You've already done it with a lot of other players. I think back to when they did trade Wayne Simmons in a year where they weren't going to make the playoffs. That opens a few eyes, Okay, that's a player who'd been here for a while and you were willing to move on. And then last season, when you did it with Shane Gostisbehere and Jake Voracek, yeah, you're opening some eyes there too, because that is a changing of the guard as well. But at the end of the day, the player who is still here, who has been here for the last 12 years and 10 years of it specifically as your captain, that's the guy who gets all the attention. And I'm not trying to say he's the problem per se. He's a good player, but at this stage of his career, he can't be your best player. And he's still your best player outside of maybe your goaltender. And you just have to have an honest conversation with him about how much do you want to win, and maybe the direction of the franchise too. You need to be honest about this. You need to have a reality check about what you are, and don't try to kid yourself that you think that another offseason of this type of activity is going to fix it, because that's just more patchwork. It's not going to be a real solution. You need to have that conversation and have him be willing to see if he'll move his no trade clause. And if he doesn't want to waive the no trade clause and not move to another team, then you can make another decision. It's not going to be a great decision in hindsight because you'll get nothing for him in return, but you don't have to re-sign him at the end of the year. He's still a free agent. You don't have an extension with him yet, so you don't have to keep him beyond this year if you don't want to. But at the same time, why would you let him go for nothing? I mean, I don't know that they would want to do that either, because I think that there's people in management that look at him and go, well, he is a leader in the room and he is a key part of the team, and he is your best player. So why would you want to just give him away for nothing or let him walk at the end of the year? I think that's why you have to have that conversation. And to me, if they do that, then I know that they're for real about where they're going. If they don't, then you can move Keith Yandle, you can move Derek Brassard when the deadline rolls around. That's all well and good, but they're 1-year players, and that doesn't move the needle for me at all, because they're not going to net you anything of significance. They're not going to bring in first-round picks. They're not going to bring in high-end prospects. They're going to get you mid-round picks at best. I'll look at Brassard, for example. Think of Brassard the way that the Flyers traded Michael Raffle at the deadline a year ago, and it got you, what, a 5th-round pick? That's kind of what you're going to get with players like that, but it gets you something. The more draft picks you have, the more chips you have to play with at the table when the draft rolls around, and it can lead to higher picks if you package them to move up or whatever. But that's really the guy. That's really where it starts for me, is if you get to that point and actually trade your captain away and signal a changing of the guard and a change in direction of where you're probably going, then to me, you're actually making a bigger statement at that point.
Flyers insider Kevin Durso with us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Check out all of his coverage over at 97.3ESPN.com, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Before I let you go, I got to ask you about the one glimmer of positive right now, and that is I'm interested to see Jackson Cates. I know a lot of people might not know who that is, but they just called him up after put Joel Farabee. I almost called him a completely different name, but no, it's Joel Farabee on the injured list. So tell us, the audience, about Jackson Cates and what we could actually expect from him.
Well, nothing tonight, because he's not going to play tonight. He's going to be the healthy scratch.
All right, well, never mind. Go ahead.
No, he's up, and I think there's something that makes sense to this now. I didn't really understand the purpose of bringing up another body per se yesterday when it happened, but when Derek Brassard's out of your lineup tonight, now you have a reason to have another reserve in place just in case. And he's your typical bottom 6 type of player, and you can throw him into that role, and he can probably be okay. I don't know if there's anything to get super excited about with him. To me, if there's anybody young on the team that I would continue to look at and see if you can get anything out of him in these next few weeks, it's Morgan Frost, because you're gonna put him alongside of a player like Giroux, hopefully, and keep him there, and maybe alongside of either Cam Atkinson. You can try to put him alongside James Hennig, like to see if there's a push there, but if Frost can get rolling a little bit, then maybe you can look at him and say he fits into the future plans, as opposed to, and I don't know if they're going to give up on him right away either. Like, he's still a young guy. Like, I feel like there's players who are younger who you can say they'll stick around for a couple years at least, because you're going to not give up that easily on players like that. But you can look at some of the veteran players and know where it's going. You can look at the 1-year contracts. You can look at guys like James Hennig, like, who are not performing. You can even look at guys who have longer term contracts than that, who are not performing to the level that they should, and start thinking about their futures as well. Because the guy who stands out to me in that regard is Travis Konechny, because I think that Travis Konechny was very much, I don't want to say available, but I'm sure he was talked about in an offseason where Chuck Fletcher was out there wheeling and dealing and making trades, and teams out there would have loved to have had him, especially if he's not going to be necessarily, the guy on a team. I've mentioned before how if you put him on a team like Colorado, watch what happens to him when he's a second line guy and you've got those 3 at the front on their first line. He'll soar in a lineup like that. I'm sure of that, but it just goes to show where they are as an organization. And there's a lot of issues across the board. I think I even mentioned in one of the takeaway articles, this doesn't just extend beyond into the NHL lineup. The AHL lineup is just as bad at this point. I mean, the AHL team, the Phantoms, are 3-11-4, which is league worst in the AHL. So you don't even have promise there that you can look to and say, well, gee, there's somebody who's turning a corner there, who maybe we could try. Like, it really just is, musical chairs at this point. And you got to think about the type of week that you've had in general. I mean, like, this has been a disastrous week from an organizational standpoint. When you consider Sunday night, you go out and get embarrassed. Monday morning, you fire the head coach. Monday afternoon, there's a viral video all over the internet of a dog giving you a literal dump and chase on the ice. I was trying to squeeze that in where I could, by the way.
Nice, good job.
Monday night, you go and lose another game, give up another 7 goals. Wednesday, total lifeless effort. And over the last 24 hours, I'm not sure if you've seen this on Twitter, Josh, but it's all over the place. There's a movement going on among Flyers fans on Twitter where everybody is switching their profiles to a picture of a guy in a Flyers jersey who has a bag over his head. And there is hashtags of Broad Street Bag and Bag It to Broad, which is a play on the team's hashtag Bring It to Broad, that are floating around as well. So, the only thing I can say about that at this point is stuff like that. The fact, the dog video that gets retweeted and
the dog
circulated.
video was really funny though.
Oh, sure. It was perfectly symbolic. But when it gets circulated as much as it did, it eventually gets noticed by people who are in charge of the team. There's no way it doesn't get brought up in a meeting somewhere or something like that. And there's no way that where so many people, I can't tell you how many I've seen who have switched their profiles over to this picture of the fan with the bag over their head, that will eventually reach the people who matter as well. Like, it gets noticed. It gets noticed what the perception of your organization is. And that's where you require a really long look in the mirror. You can't get much more frustrated and much more, you just can't get to a point, like, you almost can't bottom out more than this, after a week like this as an organization. But there's a chance, because you're going to play a game tonight against a really good team, and you're going to play a game tomorrow against the league's worst team by record and points. And if you don't come away with a win in that game to snap this streak, and you tie a winless streak record of 12, what else can you say about the week that they just had from Sunday to Saturday, where you would perfectly cap it off with embarrassment at the beginning of the week and embarrassment at the end of the week and a whole lot of other stuff in the middle? It would just perfectly encapsulate the weekend and the week that they just had. And, they're at that point, how do you get out of something like that? Like I told Mike earlier in the week, if I had the answers to that, then I probably wouldn't be talking to you guys on the air. I would be trying to provide solutions. So if I knew, then I'd be supplying the answers to the team, not talking about all the things that have happened and trying to, squeeze dump and chase jokes into this conversation.
Yeah, you'd be Chuck Fletcher's assistant general manager in that situation. So.
Exactly.
He is Flyers insider Kevin Durso. Check out all of his coverage at 973ESPN.com. Follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Durso. Kevin has a late night tonight with the Flyers in Vegas. Of course, Tim Saunders, Steve Coates on the call at 10 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN in the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Kevin, appreciate you jumping on. I understand this is not the most fun thing to talk about, but you know what? At least the Flyers are giving us, I don't know, fodder, I guess you could call it at this point.
Well, I guess so. I mean, I will say this, to bring up the picture, the profile picture on Twitter thing that's going on, this trend that's going on, it is quite possibly the most unified I've ever seen Flyers Twitter before. There's not much that unifies. There's
hey man, the dog masked United Eagle fans back in 2017.
That's true. So, that is true. And I mean, because we've had this conversation, the analytics and the eye test stuff when all the trades were going down, like, there's a huge divide. This has been as unified as I've ever seen. So, at least we're all sitting here trying to have a laugh over it. And certainly whenever I'm next on, I'll be looking forward to talking about whether or not any paper bags make their way into Wells Fargo Center on Tuesday night.
Hey, man, all I know is this. It's a little too cold outside to protest outside the building. So everyone get in the building to make your voice known. That's what I say. So, and Kevin Durso will be there next time the Flyers are back in the house. Kevin, appreciate you jumping on. Drink some extra coffee. Good luck staying up tonight.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. All right, on the other side, I'll give you my picks and bets for the weekend, thanks to FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. And, of course, we will check in with you guys to say text board is there, 609-403-0973. We are live on YouTube at 973 ESPN. Of course, you could DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of CLC. We also listen to the Flyers lose to Vegas tonight at 10 o'clock. here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.
Hi, this is Billy Schwein. Join me Saturday morning in the locker room for a very special show. It's Army-Navy weekend. The Black Knights of the Hudson and the United States Naval Midshipmen will meet for the 122nd time in this storied rivalry. We will talk with Mike Curran from Absegami High School, who went to play in this big game for Navy. The sportsbook consigliere Dave Sherapan checks in from Vegas with a six-pack of picks. Former Eagle Brad Quast will join me in the studio for all the action. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN and the mobile app.
Get to Matt Blatt Kia during the Command the Season sales event. Stuck in a loan or lease? Matt Blatt Kia can get you released. We want to approve you today. Choose from the largest selection of certified pre-owned Kias at mattblattkia.com. So bring us any trade, no matter the make, no matter the mileage, no matter the condition. So treat yourself this holiday season and drive away in a new Kia. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
Dell Technologies' end-of-year sale is the perfect time to upgrade tech. Save big on the latest computers featuring Windows 11 Pro that easily automate workflows. Don't forget to shop servers, storage, and top-brand electronics with savings up to 45% and all with free shipping. Call a Dell Technologies advisor to help you transform your digital workspaces with comprehensive end-to-end solutions. Find the right tech for your business needs at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Featured Bet is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. UFC 269 this weekend. Take Dan Ige to win at plus 138 odds. Bet all the action in style at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here, hanging out with you on 97.3 ESPN. Get you my picks for the weekend in just a moment. Don't forget, we'll be back on tomorrow, 12 o'clock, Sports Bash Saturday. We have Absegami Athletic Director Steve Fortis with me at 12:25 to talk more about what's going on with the sports season. You know, we've been writing a series of articles at 973ESPN.com and the 973 ESPN mobile app about what the world is like right now in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic, lockdowns, and all that stuff for high school sports. So, Absegami Athletic Director Steve Forrest will join us tomorrow at 12:25. Also, we'll preview UFC 269 tomorrow at 1:40 with ESPN UFC and MMA reporter Mark Ramondi at 1:40 p.m. Also, don't forget tonight, Pete Thompson is on the road. You'll hear from him coming up in less than 10 minutes from now. He is on the road. Seems like almost every weekend until the end of the month at running around with Screwballs and the folks over there with the great peanut butter whiskey. So you'll hear from Pete Thompson coming up in less than 10 minutes right here on 97.3 ESPN. He is out tonight and tomorrow. So you can go see the PT, go sample some Screwball peanut butter whiskey. So We got that all covered for you right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Also, we opened the show talking about the Ben Simmons stuff. And, a buddy of mine texted me a little bit ago, and he asked me, where do you think Ben Simmons is going to go? So I kind of broke it down like this. Now, I'm not an insider, but if I was to put like betting odds, if I was like an odds line maker, if I worked for a sports book or someone like that, this is how I'm breaking it down. All right. I would say the Timberwolves are the favorite at plus 250. Kings are the second favorite at plus 350. Spurs plus 350. Portland 900. OKC 900. Pacers 950. And New Orleans 1,000. Now, the reason why I rank like this is because the only team that has been consistently linked to Ben Simmons from July to now has been Minnesota. I believe that where there's smoke, there's fire. That's why I give them the number one slot in the odds. I give the Kings and the Spurs the same odds because both the Kings and the Spurs have a player that makes sense for the Sixers in a trade. The Kings have De'Aaron Fox. The Spurs have DeJounte Murray. Now, I think Murray is the guy that would make the most sense for the Sixers roster is currently constructed. So I think that's why those two should be considered. I put Portland at 900 because there is a scenario where Ben Simmons lands in Portland, but the Sixers get all the pieces they want and need from other teams. For example, like an Indiana Pacers when it comes to guys like Karis LeVert and Domantas Sabonis. I bring in OKC because there is a possibility that Sam Presti could move some of those picks he has in a crazy trade. I just don't think that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is leaving OKC unless under very special circumstances. I put the Pacers at 950 because they're talking about blowing up their roster, and frankly, I don't think the Sixers will trade in the conference, but I think they have to be considered. And then New Orleans a plus 1,000 because Dave Griffin needs to do something to keep his job. And the Zion Williamson experiment so far looks like it's going very bad down there in New Orleans. And I think right now, I think that Willie Green and the Pelicans would rather have a healthy Ben Simmons on the court than an unhealthy Zion Williamson. They're waiting around for him to come back. I'm not saying the Sixers will get Zion, but I'm saying the Sixers would have to get someone of significance from New Orleans for it to even happen. So, all right, before we get out of here, a couple picks for the weekend brought to you by my friends with the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel Casino in Atlantic City. This holiday season, it's time to experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get in all the games you love at the FanDuel Sportsbook, conveniently located right off the boardwalk at Bally's Hotel Casino in Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I mentioned you guys earlier. I mean, Vegas is plus 154 if they score more than 2.5 points in this game tonight. 2.5 goals spread in this game. I know it's not a huge odds, but value is value. That's probably the reason why my bet of the week is Dan Ige over on UFC 269. Listen, plus 140 is not a huge number, but Dan Ige has at least fought this calendar year. He's fighting a guy who's not fought since 2020. I believe unless you are one of the best of the best, unless you're an elite fighter, I don't see a scenario where you can rationalize to me that guy should be favored. I feel like this is another example of the odds makers throwing a dart at a dartboard and hoping that people don't take advantage of them. I told you guys the last pay-per-view, Rose Namajunas should never been the underdog. That was a straight winner. And I'm feeling the same way about Dan Ige. He's the final fight on the UFC prelim tomorrow. So I'll give you a full rundown of the main card on Sports Bash Saturday tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN. A couple other numbers I like for your football weekend. Anybody knows me knows I do not touch Army-Navy. I don't feel like it's a game you should ever have any rooting interest in. You should just enjoy the pageantry and enjoy the game as it is. But the games I do like this weekend include, I got to admit, I like the under in the Saints versus the Jets. That's 43 is the over-under there. I got to admit, I like the Seahawks minus 8.5. They're starting. I mean, they don't even have Tyrod Taylor starting this week. It looks really bad for them. And I think the Cowboys win by 3. That covers 4.5. Have a great night, everybody.